All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck, and I'm along with my coworker, Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic. And Jordan right now is at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in one of Roger Penske's fancy podcast booths that he built for the media, I think during the pandemic. And hopefully Jordan is not bothering the entire media center. I just saw you had to put in your earphones there, Jordan. So maybe I was bothering the entire media center before you put.
I figured I'd just be better safe than sorry. So
Okay, all right.
they,
Nobody
they are
wants to.
they are beautiful rooms, but for some reason they left like the top of them with
Yeah, the ceiling's open. Yeah.
which I'm not questioning Roger Penske's decisions or anything, but seems a little questionable.
Well, you got to have air, Jordan. You have a lot of hot air when you talk on the podcast. So
That's very true.
you got to have the air. The air's got to go somewhere. Got to go somewhere, Jordan.
Very true.
But listen, wow, this is I've been anxiously awaiting this conversation to talk to you about this race, the Indianapolis Road Course race. Man, there's a lot to take away from this one, to talk about from this one. First of all, Jordan, your impressions of Michael McDowell winning at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, winning his way into the playoffs. We knew he was having a good year. We knew he was going to be in playoff contention. He not only is, has a great race, he goes out there, dominates the race, has the best car, and wins. Wow, what a day.
This isn't supposed to happen in NASCAR, right? I mean, a mid-sized team goes to a road course and just not only just wins, but straight up beats everybody down where it was not even a question. This doesn't happen. Like it reminds me of some of Eric Jones's win last year at Darlington, but even that race, a lot of things kind of happened to put Jones in that position. And that was a lot of attrition. Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr. Not that he didn't deserve it, he did, but it wasn't like this. This was unfathomable. And they've had a great season. But to come here and do this, and when they did, impressive isn't the right word because it feels like it's underselling it. This was a standout performance, and you can say what you want about his career, and we've always thought he was capable of this, but he did it. It's not more longer capable. He showed today that he can do it.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, because we talk a lot about, even when we're looking ahead to the road courses, well, this guy could win. Well, this guy could win. They're capable if everything falls the right way on the right day, the strategy. It wasn't even one of those cases where, everything just worked out for him. Like,
No.
He had the best car. He did the best job of driving today. He deserved that win. That race was about as pure as you can ever get for a NASCAR race. No stage breaks. One caution. It was really, really early in the race. They run almost the entire race green. Yeah, and people got a shot at him. The 99 team was going to have a shot at him. And who was it that had the bad pit stop? Not the 34 team with the underfunded pit crew, you'd think, so to speak, or the not top tier. The 99 team with Trackhouse, who Trackhouse has great pit crews. They blinked in that situation, right? Then you have Chase Elliott, 7-time road course winner, chasing him down. And again, even going into this race, or even during this race, you're thinking, all right, at least I was, Chase Elliott, Hendrick Motorsports car, elite driver. At some point, he's going to catch the front row motorsports car. He's going to pass it. And nothing against McDowell. It's just that, again, you're going to say Chase Elliott with Hendrick Motorsports or Michael McDowell with front row and put them on a course for a 40 lap or whatever it was duel, where they're within 2 seconds of each other. Who's going to win? I'm going to tell you, Chase Elliott and Hendrick Motorsports. Yeah. No, it didn't happen. Michael McDowell, front row. They kicked everybody's butt today. We talked about the road course ringers, world class, all the stuff. Front row motorsports and Michael McDowell were the class of the field today. The best performance of Michael McDowell's career. Look, again, he talked about it too a little bit in the post-race press conference. Daytona 500, great. I mean, look, kudos to him. You're never going to take a shot at the Daytona 500, but we all know winning the Daytona 500 is a lot of circumstances at times. The way he won it, the two cars in front of him wrecked that year.
Yeah, teammates.
He drove through the middle and he won, which is great. Look, he was in the right position. But this one, he went out and absolutely earned it. I was glad that there wasn't some weird fluky, NASCAR signature type thing at the end there that would have put some wrinkle. This changes everything caution. We got to see a race just simply play out, and the best driver and the best car won today. Great. I mean, he deserved it and he won it.
We talk a lot about old school races and what it constitutes a good race and everything. This was kind of, in a lot of respects, an old school race, right? Just a driver and team putting a whooping on the field and doing so in a race without cautions. I mean, without only one caution, which happened on lap 2. This felt like a very much a throwback race. This felt like a road course race you see so many times in sports cars or other forms of racing. There was nothing to this today. I mean, it was just he made it look easy, and it wasn't anything but at no point did he blink. Even at times when he had cars around him, Suarez and Elliott, he didn't put pressure on himself. He just executed. And this was a near, I guess, I don't even say near perfect. This was a perfect performance for him and a perfect weekend for that team where they unload, they're fast in practice, they back it up in qualifying, and then come the race, they go out and win. It's like this is good as it gets. This was I am just I don't want to say blown away, but I am in awe of what we saw today by this team. Like this is not what they're supposed to do.
Look, I mean, you can say all day that, hey, one caution and, there was no lead change late and he dominated. And I get people are saying that. I'm looking on x.com, whatever we're supposed to call this website now. And I see the reactions. They're flowing through. They're streaming through. And some people are sort of agreeing with me that, hey, it was a good race and naturally played out and nice. And, and other people are like, nah, it was too boring. Like, you didn't see the wrecking and the lead change and all that stuff. For me, this race was super, super compelling because of who was up there. Number one, Michael McDowell with only one career win in over 450 starts, trying to cap off this sort of long, excruciating building process for Front Row Motorsports, a team that we don't really consider to be even sort of like a B-level team, right? Like, and could he do that? Then you have Chase Elliott. And as much as we've talked about Chase Elliott this year, can he win? Can he point his way in? He was in position. He had a shot, this was the best he's run probably since he came back. He looked like himself again today, I thought. He was there. And if Michael McDowell would have made sort of one mistake, I think Chase would have been right in the picture and able to capitalize. And he needed to win so bad. Then you had the Suarez thing, and he was up there even better than third for a long time. And had his team not made that terrible mistake on the pit stop to cost so much time, Suarez is probably right in the mix. We don't know what's going to happen there. It's tough to project what would have happened, but he would have been in the mix for sure.
Yeah. And how aggressive is he in that situation? That
absolutely.
Elliott too, when they both need wins. And
I mean, so with all the playoff bubble stuff that we've talked about, to have sort of 3 bubble drivers, 1, 2, 3, trying to figure out how is this going to sort out? Is there going to be a late caution? Is somebody going to make a mistake? Are somebody's tires going to fall off? Whatever. And we'll see a lead change. That to me, I don't need the cautions. And so I have people too that say, well, wait a minute, Jeff, you just criticized Richmond, because you didn't like that it played out green. Well, again, that's a short track. This is a road course. Yeah. My expectations are different for a short track. So this was a great road race to me. I mean, okay, yeah, there could have been more action, but I was never like, oh God, this is so boring.
I think what differentiates this though is it's refreshing in a way is we have talked so often about road course races recently, whether it was Indy here last year, actually last 2 years here at Indy, Coda, Chicago, even to some degree, so a lesser degree, but some degree still, of how they've become, lack of a better term, clown shows, right? Like guys are dive bombing and crashing and endless caution after caution and overtimes and this and that, and you're like walking away going, okay, we like chaos, don't get me wrong, but this definitely overstepped and it was it was just too messy. This was on the other end of the spectrum. Now, do I want this every single road course race? Probably not, because then we probably have the discussion about where's the action, that kind of thing. But it was nice to have a race like this happen because we haven't seen it in a long time. And it was nice. It was a nice break from it has become the norm, where this was just about a driver who could best execute, a team that could make green flag after green flag pit stop and not have a mistake. And this was fun. This was a great race in that respect. I don't want to see this every road course race because I don't think that would be good. But I think it was a nice differentiation from what we have seen, because this was good. This was a needed refresher.
Look, I would take what we saw today over that COTA race in March 10 out of 10 times, or the previous Indy road course races where, again, the restarts is just people throwing it in there and wrecking each other and over, and you're just like, there's no respect for anybody. It's just restart after restart, and they all pile in there, and that's why they moved the restart zone and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Which seemed to work well, by the way.
Well, we didn't really get that many restarts.
No, but we saw the Xfinity Series race. So.
Yeah.
I mean, it did seem to work, and it worked at Chicago too. So
yeah, I'm all in favor of it for sure.
I do. I honestly, it's probably something you probably should do at every road course. And we talked after COTA. We were kind of brainstorming, and we're like, I don't know what they're going to do with that.
Well, no, I don't think you need it for every road course. So let me back up. I think you need the road courses where it's a really tight turn one. A place like a Portland, a place like an Indy, a COTA. I don't think you need to do that for like Sonoma or something. You can have the normal restart.
I guess
there.
It depends on what you constitute as tight, but either way, this worked, and kudos, because it was a nice departure from what we've seen. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like craziness and chaos, and but COTA was probably too much of that, and what we've seen the last 2 years here at Indy. Oof, especially last year. Well, I mean, actually both years were brutal in a lot of different respects, and it was good to see. It was just nice to see an old school sports. This reminded me of a sports car race. That's what this was in a lot of respects.
Yeah, and I do think that you have a point that if this becomes a norm on road courses, maybe that gets old after a while. But again, like especially this time of year when we're talking about the importance of the playoffs, you just want things to be decided straight up.
Yeah, fair.
You want things to be, like you don't, like here's an alternate scenario for you, right? Let's say late in this race, like Stenhouse, right? He booted Kobayashi. Let's say Kobayashi gets stuck. They got to call caution. I don't know how many laps were left when that happened, but like let's say there's a late caution, and then Michael McDowell, who's dominated the race, gets punted. Chase Elliott's leading. Another caution. Chase Elliott gets punted. Suarez, something, I don't know. Somebody from fifth place has emerged as the winner. It completely changes the playoff format. It completely ruins all these, you're just like, ugh. Like, how do you take that as somebody who's looking for competition here, and you want sort of like the best people to make it or the best people to be rewarded for a good day? And it doesn't always happen that way. I get that. That's sports. But like, you just don't want to leave with that feeling like, this was sort of cheap. Like this got messed up for somehow.
No, I mean, the right guy won the race today.
And again, it's not a shot at anybody else, talent level or whatever. It's just, he did the best job. His team did the best job. He had the best car. And so, hey, like how many NASCAR races have we seen over the years where the best car doesn't win? It happens all the time. But in a situation like this, I'm perfectly fine with seeing this outcome, especially for a team and a guy that is really, it's not like he wins like 10 races a year. I mean, this is for somebody to truly be deserving of putting themselves in this situation. You got handed to him. And I think it's worth talking about that road for him for a minute. I mean,
go for it.
Well, I just, like, look, the guy, he starts off in open wheel, right? But then he goes to ARCA. Michael Waltrip Racing at the time was like sort of a fledgling organization. They put him straight from ARCA into one of their cars. Yeah. They're like, okay, let's see what you can do. He didn't even make it the full rookie season there. He had the big tumble, Texas and all that stuff. And, it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, well, he got thrown to the wolves. It didn't work out. He was totally in over his head, essentially. And he was gone, before the season was over. So then he spends the next, I think, over 4 years or something, starting parking. I mean, for Phil Parsons' team, he did a little bit for Tommy Baldwin. I mean, and then finally he gets sort of like a big break where he gets hired by that 95 car, Levine Family Racing. But even then, that car was not what we saw toward the end of Levine Family Racing.
I think they were starting parking too for a while, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, they were off. I mean, they were
they were off, yeah.
Right. So, but
Yes,
at least he was running with that team. So he sort of starts building that team up, and he gets booted, right? So he goes to front row, if I have my timeline right. But and so he's had to build front row up, obviously, and gotten better and steadily progressed every year. And you were asking questions at the post-race press conference, like, and I see what your line of thinking was, like, hey, does this feel like an upset sort of underdog Cinderella story win for you?
But it shouldn't.
Right, but I mean, they were saying no.
Yeah.
And I agree. It's they had been putting themselves in position to where this shouldn't have been a surprise if you were watching McDowell's progress this year. So I think that in itself is a huge comment. I mean, when they lost Blake Harris to Hendrick Motorsports, crew chief from last year from McDowell, you're like, well, maybe that's why they were running so well. And now they've got Travis Peterson, first time crew chief, no experience. Well, so much for that, McDowell. And they've been better. I mean, they've continued their progress. So again, you can't say enough. I mean, I think he's been the story of the year in some ways, because like you can look at the drivers. We talk about our playoff predictions. If we had sat there in February at our playoff predictions before Daytona and said Michael McDowell will be in the playoffs, in every scenario it would have been because they won some sort of fluky, again, maybe a road course, super speedway. They would have been outside the top 20 in points. They won their way in. They got a spot, right? But he's been in the points. I mean, he's been in the conversation. Now they win to lock it up, but he's been super competitive. So again, super props to them. I don't know what they'll do in the playoffs, but they made it.
They have done a really good job, and it's not an upset, but they have done a really good job of maximizing their cars every single week. If they have a 10th place car, that's where they finish, and they don't lose a lot of points. Travis Peterson has done a really good job on strategy of getting track position. He's a very, very good crew chief at doing that. Now, it bit him a little bit at Richmond this year. He got a little too aggressive, and he'll tell you that. But he's done a really good job of figuring that out, of how they can make gains. And like you said, Jeff, they have been running really, really well, almost to the point where their finishes aren't always indicative of how well they're running. And it felt like at some point they were going to cash in, and this was it today. And we have seen this in this era of this next gen car where, mid-sized teams, if you hire the right people, you get smart people, talented people, and you can do things, and you can build a team into one that is consistently competitive. And we have seen it with Trackhouse, which has gone from a fledgling team to borderline powerhouse in some respects. We're now seeing it with Front Row. We saw it last year with which is now Legacy. So it's all of these teams that are you can figure this out. You can hire good people. It's kind of reminds you a little bit of the Moneyball approach and baseball. You look outside and you don't just go spend money. You figure out the right way to spend money. And if you can do that, you can build something. And whether we'll see if this has staying power or not, but the pieces are certainly there, and McDowell is a large part of that.
Let's talk about the implications of this win, because it changes things up now. So first of all, I think the big loser from today, and it's really, he didn't really do anything wrong, he finished 18th, but Bubba Wallace, suddenly I think this sort of changes the whole tone of things. Because you're Bubba Wallace, you had this nice 50 whatever point cushion, 3 races to go. You're thinking, man, I have really I have some great weeks here. I put myself in a great spot. Even if there's a new winner, I'm still kind of, pretty far ahead of McDowell. I'm in good shape here. Well, now McDowell takes a spot. Suarez is the next one. Bubba is 28 points up on Suarez. But the way Suarez ran today, that's, you're like, okay, well, he's going to have a good run at the road course next week at Watkins Glen. He could win. Good. Now you're also looking at like Chase Elliott.
That's the thing. So
right.
that's the thing, is what we saw from Chase Elliott today is a sign of things of like, okay, they got speed. They found what they've been missing, and now they're going to Watkins Glen, which, by the way, they do pretty well there usually. You're like, oh, that's worrisome. And now that's a concern if Elliott can go there and win. And then, oh, by the way, after Watkins Glen, you got Daytona, where you don't know what's going to happen there. And we've seen it, we saw it last year. You don't know, and it doesn't matter what you do, you're now at the mercy of other things that you can't control. That's a tough thing for Bubba. And I mean, he said on Saturday that he was, he was feeling pressure. Like he knows he has to make the playoffs. Like the expectation is make playoffs. He feels like he's had a good season. They've let some things kind of get away from them sometimes. Good runs have not materialized into good finishes. Richmond's a perfect example of that, where they let a lot of laps and then they faded and they ended up finishing 12th or something like that. And they just haven't been able to close out. And it's now getting to that point though, where your inability throughout the year to close out good days is now potentially going to bite you. And that's a tough spot to be in.
But here's the thing. Chase Elliott winning makes all of those, I mean, aside from Bubba not winning, any points that he left on the table, anything makes
Sure.
completely irrelevant, because he is so far back to the gap that is the Keselowski and Harvick. He's over 100. He's 115 points behind that battle. So that even if he had, they've been able to maximize all their points short of winning, it's now, like you said, you're at the mercy. It has to be a completely helpless feeling, because you can go to Watkins Glen next week and say, hey, let's try to run top 15 and get as many points as we can. But if Chase Elliott wins, there's nothing you can do about it. And you just got bumped out and you got to go to Daytona and win. And I'll tell you what is also the other wrinkle of that, because I after what I saw today, I'm going to think Chase Elliott's the favorite.
He's my
Watkins
pick.
Glen.
He's
right.
I was thinking that during the race today. I'm like, if Elliott doesn't win today, I think he goes to Watkins Glen and wins. Like I'll say right now, he's my pick.
Yep. I agree. He's going to go there as the person to beat.
Yes,
in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah.
Yep.
And maybe we're making too big of a jump because of one race, but this just felt different today. Like they qualified well, they raced well. This was a race from the 19 we haven't seen. I couldn't tell you the last time we saw a race like this from these guys.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, it would maybe be a different conversation, Jordan, if it was like a month between road course races and you're like, well, we don't know who's going to be. I mean, they're going next week. They are going, they roll right into another road course race from here. So, I mean, I think you could take a lot from today and say, well, this kind of transfers over, this doesn't. I mean, so, and this is where it really gets interesting, because after Michigan, we're like, well, it's pretty much a formality that like Harvick is going to clinch. Keselowski will clinch all the stuff. Well, now all of a sudden, so let's say in this scenario, let's say Suarez or Elliott wins at Watkins Glen. Okay. Now the cut line is up to, we're going to Daytona, and the cut line is to Harvick and Keselowski. Well, they're only separated by 2 points right now.
Yeah. And only one of them gets in then.
And only one of them gets in.
Yeah.
So that is, wow. Like all of a sudden, like both Harvick and Keselowski have had these great seasons. Harvick is max. I mean, again, you've done everything right except win. And you could get into a situation at Daytona where all of a sudden he's standing on pit road at the end of the race looking up and be like, wow, I just got knocked out of the playoffs in my last season. Like, whoa, what in the world just happened? I mean, just crazy. But I mean, these are possible scenarios at this point.
It is.
Go ahead.
Really quick on Chase Elliott. This isn't just a one race thing. I just looked at the results. They had a really good run at Sonoma this year, finished 5th. In Chicago, they used strategy and they got a lucky caution, but he still finished 3rd. Like, this is a team that all of their issues they've had this year, road courses have not been a weak spot for them. So they are, and I'll say at Coda too, the 9 car with Jordan Taylor driving qualified, I think 4th in that race. So this 9 car has been really, really good on road courses. So it just emphasizes our point, which is like him next week. It feels like he's the man. And you said about the other Brad and Kevin, it's kind of starting to shape up like a scenario we saw last year where Martin Truex Jr. and Ryan Blaney, who were both having top 5 point seasons, one of those guys were going into Daytona, had a really good chance of missing it. And that's where we're at right now. If what we think is going to unfold next week at Watkins Glen happens, and then what happens at Daytona and who ends up winning there. So it's gone from, okay, we kind of figured this out, we know who's in, or we have a good idea who mostly's in, to okay, maybe, maybe let's pump the brakes a little bit here.
Yeah, and I mean, I would even throw in Alex Bowman as somebody who, I mean, he finished fifth today. He could go win the Glen. I don't think that's out of the question. Chase Briscoe looked like he hit on something today. He had to start further back than the cars he was racing with, but he got up to sixth. So I mean, there's maybe some more wrinkles to come here. That it seemed like it was a little bit settled in a way, but the way you end the regular season with 2 road courses and a super speedway, all of a sudden
I like it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun.
So another storyline coming in today was obviously all about the ringers, and Shane Van Gisbergen was coming back. Brody Kostecki, who's actually ahead of Van Gisbergen in the supercars points. Kamui Kobayashi, who was said to have this great test. Comes through with another top 10. So he goes 2 for 2 in his top 10s. By the way, SVG in his 2 starts has as many top 10s this season as Eric Almirola and Harrison Burton, and he has more top 10s this season than Ryan Preece in his 2 starts. So, but he, again, we didn't think that he was going to be able to dominate like he did at the Chicago Street Course. We already, the drivers as well. I wrote a story this week on The Athletic, laid out what they thought the differences were going to be. Again, the Chicago Street Course, I think you have even more appreciation for what he did there now. When you see how hard it was today. I mean, again, he was playing a little bit of catch up on this course. There was more room for runoff. There's more room to be aggressive and not hit walls and things like that. It was going to be a tall order for him to come in and do anything close to what he did last time. But I think 10th is, again, super respectable, extremely respectable. It's just he already set a really high bar. So what did you think of his performance?
It was good. I mean, it wasn't Chicago, but we didn't expect it to be. I thought he'd be a little bit more competitive, but it's hard to quibble with a guy finishing 10th in his second Cup start. And it didn't sound like the car was quite to his, liking today, and that's going to happen. And he still finished 10th with it is pretty impressive. Good day for Trackhouse overall, with 2 of their guys finishing in the top 10. And then Chastain, by the way, another.
I didn't even think about him.
Like,
yeah, he was. I never even thought about him all day.
Yeah, and so no, I was impressive. And I'll tell you what, I watched the Truck Series race on the other night at IRP. I was really, really impressed with him. And I know, he walked. I think he finished 19th or whatever in that race. But you could watch him throughout the race get better and better. And there was one point there, it's like he'd moved up and he's passing people on the outside and he's doing all these things, and you're like, this guy with some experience and just a little bit of seat time, that you can see why people are so high on him and why Trackhouse is putting together a program for him to run NASCAR full time, because he is immensely talented.
Yeah, and I think it's going to take a long time to learn ovals, and I don't know if he'll ever get up to speed in the way that the current Cup drivers are. But like you said, he's obviously extremely talented. His adaptability is fantastic. And I really like his attitude and his approach. It's interesting because I got some, I tweeted this week about how it seems like it's just been so enjoyable to listen to him and all his interviews. And I'm impressed. Like, to me, it's like the little things, right? Like, I noticed, again, Steven Stump from frontstretch.com, right? He'll walk up to people and with his cell phone and say, hey, can we do an interview? Right. And, there's like nobody around, and probably it would be easy for these drivers to blow him off. I mean, Shane Van Gisbergen, if he wanted to be, could be like, you know what? I'm 3-time Supercars champion. I'm not going to talk to this dude. I don't even know who this dude is. He's by himself, whatever. But, he does a perfectly cheerful interview. And you're just like, wow, he comes off really well. But then I got some tweets about it from down under in Australia. And people are like, well, down here, he doesn't really like the media. He gives sort of short one-word answers and doesn't seem to enjoy doing the interviews too much. And he actually he himself referenced that in Chicago when we were talking to him in the bullpen that day. He's like, yeah, I really like talking to the media here, and it's just a different environment. I don't know what the difference is, and maybe he's just over it. No, I don't think that's not.
I thought that's fair. We're just likable guys, Jeff.
I don't think that's it. But it seems like he's taken a whole different, fresh approach to coming over here, and it's a fresh start for him. He seems really excited about it, enthusiastic. I think he'd be a great addition to whatever combination of series, whatever he's going to run. Obviously, nobody's expecting him to go out on ovals and go to Kansas or something and win. So, but I think it'd be great to have him around, and it seems like a good addition. I think just having these drivers in the field is a huge compliment to NASCAR. That people watch NASCAR racing and say, you know what, I'd like to be a part of that. I want to try that. It looks fun. Whether it's Kobayashi or Jenson Button. Jenson Button, he's sped on pit road. So that really cost him a lot of time. But had he not sped, he finished 28th. He could have gotten up to probably around where Brody Kostecki was in 22nd. So,
and Rockefeller had a penalty too on pit road, and he didn't have a horrible finish today either.
Yeah, he was 24th. Kobayashi, I don't know. He did get spun, but it was sort of like he never really showed the speed that I thought he was going to show based on sort of like the hype. Like there was sort of this underground, like, man, you should have seen him at the test, like, or this test he did, like he was lightning, and like people were like, ooh. And then it just, I don't know, it just didn't come together for him. But again, like it shows you how hard it is. So
it is hard. And there's a big difference. And Jordan Taylor said it, Jenson Button said it after Coda, remember, where there's a big difference between running in this car by yourself and running with other people around you, because these guys will chew you up, and they are very aggressive. Now, we didn't have the number of restarts today where things really get chaotic, but it's a much different environment when you're in race conditions than in just on the track by yourself.
Yeah, no doubt. But it's cool. I think that NASCAR's international flair right now, with the Garage 56 thing too. They've got a lot of positive things going, and the versatility of their drivers is something to talk about. And speaking of that, let's talk about Kyle Larson. What a weekend!
Not a bad weekend for him, huh? Knoxville Nationals.
He wins the Knoxville Nationals for the second time. And first of all, I if you know dirt racing or sprint car racing, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I've seen enough replies that I think it's worth pointing out. I legit don't think there's another driver in the Cup Series field that could even make the A main at Knoxville. That's how hard it is to even make the race, let alone go out and win it. Christopher Bell is a great driver, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is, to make the A main consistently at Knoxville, that's extremely hard. You look at the people that miss. They're some of the best sprint car drivers in that B main and the C main. It's very difficult. So to get into the show is huge. To get into the show and start on the pole and lead all 50 laps against the best sprint car drivers in the world while you're going back and forth between a NASCAR Cup Series race, to win it at 1:00 in the morning, fly back to Indy, wake up, unveil your Indy 500 car for next year.
Yeah.
And then go out and run a full race and get a top 10 at a road course. This guy, man, like, wow, this is we sort of take it for granted at this point with Kyle Larson. Just be like, yeah, Kyle Larson. Yeah, of course he does. Yeah, he's great. He can win in anything. But like, dude, it's incredible, really.
He's the 8th driver to win multiple Knoxville Nationals, and I think only the 2nd guy ever to lead all 50 laps in the race. It is remarkable. His all-around ability is a marvel. And him running the Indy 500 next year is going to be fun to watch. Just as a racing fan and what he can do. And it's kind of this thing of, is he going to win? I don't know, but you can't dismiss it. I know it sounds outlandish to say, but we've seen Fernando Alonso come over here and nearly win the Indy 500. So it's not that, it would be a shock, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, because but that just tells you what kind of talent he is, and he's a generational guy, and it's too bad we don't get to see him do more stuff across the board and different things, because it is fun to watch, and it's gonna be cool next year to see what he does in the double. It's gonna be really interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be a big story. People are probably going to be almost tired of hearing about it before May even starts, but it's huge because again, it's like you're going there and you really feel like this guy could have a chance to do something. I mean, he's going to be with McLaren. You know, they're probably going to have great cars. You know, he's going to have all the resources. He's going to have great teammates helping him. You know, Rick Hendrick's on board. You know, he's got full support in every way, and you know, it's going to be something to watch. I think it's going to be really like eye-opening to see the hype that goes into that. To think like, could he win it? I mean, it's again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but the next time we're back at Indy, he's going to be there. So
Yeah,
pretty crazy. I don't know. That's going to be a really, really fun story for next year.
it is. Look forward to it.
But there's plenty more stories for this year. One of which is like Ford out of nowhere has suddenly won 3 races in a row. After we're just like, Ford just, they've only won 2 races in the first 21. Ford, what a down year for Ford. And again, like if you're going to rewind a couple months ago and say, no, wait, Ford's going to win 3 races in a row. We'd be like, who do you think it's going to be? Well, what teams even? I won't even make you say what driver. Well, okay, Penske's going to be one of them for sure.
Yeah.
Then I'll throw a Harvick and Stewart Haas car, in there for another one. And you know what? I'll probably say another Penske. Well, 0 Penske, 0 Stewart Haas. It's been 2 RFK and a front row for Ford.
Yeah,
I mean,
would not have predicted that at all. And yeah, it's really interesting where Penske's at right now, because they look like an organization that's lost. Like Logano again today had a race like this is not his track at all.
gosh, I mean,
yeah,
2 years in a row he's gone into turn 1 and just like,
yeah.
I mean, he had a rough start to this race and ends up finishing 34th.
Yeah. Blaney was fine, but he didn't do anything great today by any means.
Well, he's lucky he didn't get back around AJ Allmendinger, apparently.
Well, apparently, but we'll see.
Cindric had a top 15. I mean,
but you expect better out of him.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I mean, you expect much better on a road course. You expect much better on him. Penske's just not on it right now. They're missing something with their cars. It's a little puzzling. I mean, we'll see what happens from the playoffs, but right now it's a search. And Stewart Haas Racing continues to be an organization where it's like you just don't know what to expect week to week. Kevin Harvick today was not good at all.
No, he didn't even finish on the lead lap. I mean, yeah, you look at the top 3 finishers for Ford today, and they were Michael McDowell, Chase Briscoe, and Chris Buescher, which again, if you're going to rewind a couple months ago, you just wouldn't have. Nope. Yeah, this is for a season that seemed so predictable in some ways. There's a few wrinkles that we didn't quite see coming, I think, here. I do want to talk about Tyler Reddick real quick, because I thought I predicted Tyler Reddick was going to win this race. And,
I picked AJ Allmendinger, so I couldn't have done any worse.
Well, boy, yeah. Reddick finished 4th, but it just didn't seem like they had the same speed that we thought they would have. So I don't really know what that means for Watkins Glen. I will say, though, the AJ Allmendinger thing, whew, I mean, you might as well just put a cap on that story. I don't see him winning the Glen at this point.
No. I mean, his confidence is not well. AJ's a guy that if his confidence is high, he tends to do well. When it gets lower, he can go the other direction, and that's where we're at right now. And that team is searching. You even look at the Xfinity Series stuff when he's doing that. I mean, he was fine in the Xfinity Series race yesterday, but he wasn't great. He didn't blow anybody's doors off, which is not what you would expect. You go back to Road America a few weeks ago in that Xfinity Series race, again, fine, but didn't blow anybody's doors off. That team is just off overall, whether it's on the Cup side or the Xfinity side. And AJ's confidence is low, and that was a miss by me. And I thought this stretch set up well for them. and I thought an opportunity to at least even get playoff points or pick up stage points and stuff, and they didn't even do that. That's a big miss. There, it's win or go home for them, and I don't know. I mean, I guess Daytona is going to be it, maybe, because I don't think it's going to happen at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, the whole Richmond conversation we had where we're like, what are they doing? They're giving up valuable potential points by having him race at Road America. It's irrelevant now.
Doesn't matter now.
Yeah, he fell behind Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman in points today. He's that far out. So there's no chance of pointing his way in. And just a few weeks ago, he was right there. So yeah, that happened in a hurry. Speaking of people that went the wrong direction, now he ended up finishing 12th, but I think he got spun by SVG early, and Ty Gibbs loses 2 valuable spots today. He was in the playoffs to start the day, +3, I think, right?
Yes.
And now he is, that was a big turnaround. NBC put up this graphic. I took a screenshot of it. Yeah, he was +3 before the race. Now he is -49.
Yeah, he lost. The thing with him today is not only did he finish 12th, where Suarez and McDowell finished ahead of him, he also lost stage points. Now, great rally back, but in a race where it goes green almost the entire way, you're not going to get that track position back. And yeah, tough.
And after he won the Xfinity race, and knowing how good he is on road courses, I would have thought this could be a big day for him.
Absolutely. I do think he's somebody to watch at Watkins Glen. Keep an eye on him there. We'll see.
To win, though?
I'm not discounting it, man. I mean, it's, why not?
Who are your top three favorites off the top of your head for Watkins Glen sitting here on Sunday night after Indy?
Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr.
So I will say Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, not in this order, because I'll say Chase Elliott first, Kyle Larson second, and then I'll say Michael McDowell. I think Michael McDowell's pretty good at the Glen too. He's going to have a lot of momentum. They just hit on something. I think he could go out and have another great race. So yeah, I don't really, Truex, he finished 7th today. We didn't really hear from him, but I'd still put Truex, Reddick. I mean, Reddick is still
Reddick. I mean, road courses, he finished 4th today. It's not like he was, a bad day and he finished 4th. That's pretty remarkable too.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not putting Ty Gibbs in my top 5 people who I think could go do it. That doesn't mean he can't, but again, you're like, I'm not even putting AJ Allmendinger in there. So it's he's got his work cut out for him. I really, next week is going to say so much in terms of, I mean, it's going to have so many answers of what we need to look for at Daytona. It's going to be, it could go completely one way, the other way. Like, man, to be this late in the season, the regular season, and have sort of so much in doubt still it's fun. It's fun to have stuff to talk about. I think the playoffs, this format, you can complain about the playoffs, and I've done my share of that over the years for sure.
I'm shocked that you've complained.
Yeah, but it has really made what they have right now with the combination of the playoff points and the win and you're in and all that stuff is really made the regular season so much more fun. Like, we used to get to the summer stretch.
Teams would basically take it off.
Well, it was I mean, you didn't really need to do anything. Like, if you knew you were in the playoffs, and
they were experimenting, and it was, I think this system, I love it. I think it's the best of both worlds, where you have the mentality of you have to, like, what winning is so important, and winning carries this big bonus of getting in the playoffs. And so there's an intensity of that. But you also have the old school race 1 to race 36 mentality of, you want the most points possible. Consistency still matters. Running well every week matters. There's a reward for winning the regular season championship. I think it's I like it. I like it a lot. I think NASCAR has done a really good job of this. And all of the versions that we've seen since the playoffs started in 2014, I think this regular season is the best combination of that. And I honestly would not make any changes to it whatsoever.
Would you make any changes to the no stage caution things? Because there was some talk about that today. I personally wouldn't. I thought it generated some interesting storylines. Like, for instance, you saw Denny Hamlin not pit at all in the first 2 stages and milked his fuel to get his playoff point.
Yeah.
Which, had there been a stage break, had there been stage breaks, I mean, that strategy doesn't really, because the whole field pits, whatever, it flips. It's so predictable. You're either
We had
going
two
for the win
strategies.
or
That was
whatever.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Now, again, like, did the strategy with play an outcome in the win? No, I don't think that really everybody there's no like big shocker because there's no real late cautions or anything like that. But
No.
I thought it was interesting to see different people trying different things early. Like, I am fine not. I'm not going to go back now. I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going to be like.
I'm
Yeah.
on the record on this podcast. I want to get rid of stage breaks everywhere. Like, I don't like
Yeah, I
them.
don't know about that. I don't know
I
about
don't
that.
think they do anything. Why? What is the what? Why? Give
Well,
me
I
a
think
good reason why.
some races you do need to bunch the field back up again.
I don't like it. It doesn't do anything for me. I don't like the random call. I don't. It feels kind of. That's not random because we know they're coming, but it's just like no, like that's how the racing plays out. If there's not a caution, that's just how it is. We don't need to make something artificial to juice it. If the product isn't good enough, and again, you don't necessarily even need cautions to have good race. We had a good race today without caution, so it can happen. And then if you and I get it, restarts and passing and all of that stuff, fine, but I don't think they have done anything to really enhance the product or make it that much better. They don't really feel like it's helped on the television side of saying, hey, we're going to air the more commercials during these breaks now than missing green flag racing, which I don't think has happened. And to your point, Jeff, I agree. The strategy element is great. And whether you're here at a road course, which is now the playbook is open for crew chiefs, whether it's a Richmond, which we saw, which has been great without stage break, whether it's a Pocono, whether it's at Indianapolis next year when they're racing on the oval of Michigan, super speedways too. Like, I can go on. There's a lot of racetracks where I don't need stage breaks. I just don't need them. And so when I start piecemealing this and saying, yeah, super speedways and Pocono and Indy and the road courses, well, we're up to, I don't know, what, a dozen tracks at that point, dozen races. You just got to say, screw it. Let's just get rid of it altogether.
I'm not opposed to trying it at a few places, but I really don't think that it would be good everywhere. Again, like, let's say a Las Vegas race that has 2 races a year, maybe you try it for one, no stage breaks, go ahead and do the other. But I mean, I think a big part of some of these thrilling intermediate tracks over the last few years have been because of the restarts. So if you take away a couple restarts, somebody gets out to a 10-second lead. It's one thing to do it at a road course where you think, okay, the strategy could change or somebody could spin or you just don't know. But yeah,
if your product is such to a point where the best thing is the restarts, like,
well, that's how it's been though. That was the whole 550 package. That's been like that for a while. But
I don't know. I don't see. I don't know. I don't think I need to see a good case of how they make the product better, and I don't think they do.
That's fair. I mean, I'm not. I could be convinced to see your side. I just don't know if that's the right move at this point. But I could be convinced.
All right.
So this was another IndyCar doubleheader weekend. Did that do anything for you with the IndyCar presence there before they go back to the oval next year, which won't be a doubleheader, obviously?
Yeah, I was talking to a lot of folks about this. I was thinking about writing it and everything, and there's a little bit of, I don't want to say sadness is the right word, but there's a little bit of, we're gonna miss this. This is a cool thing. Everybody coming together. It's the one time of the year. It's unique. It feels like a celebration a little bit. The crossover's cool. I know it's kind of cliche a little bit at this point. You got the NASCAR drivers hanging out in the IndyCar garage, and IndyCar drivers doing this over the NASCAR garage, and all the interactions and everything. I think it's cool, and it's going to be unfortunate that it's not going to happen next year. Now, I support the move going to the oval. We talked about that on last week's episode. I'm fine with that. Makes sense, but I would like to see this continue somewhere else in the future. That's not going to happen next year, from what I've been told, anywhere. But in 2025, I think it's worthy to explore doing this somewhere because I just think it's a good thing for motorsports. And I think if you're a race fan, it's like yesterday was a pretty cool day to be at the racetrack. When you saw the Xfinity Series race, you saw IndyCar race, you saw the Cup cars on the track. Like, that's a pretty cool show. And you could lay it out differently. I think running the IndyCar race and the Cup Series race on the same day is worth trying to see what that's like. But I just think this weekend is an event, and we talk a lot about events and making weekends special. That's what having this combo weekend did.
I don't know. The first year I was really, really excited about it. And then it was like the very next week. I think it was the very next week they had the races on head to head at the exact same time again. And that really soured it for me. I'm not even kidding, because I was like, wait a minute. They just spent all this time hyping it up. Motorsports is all, you're just a motorsports fan in America. Like, everybody like all forms of racing, and they're all different. You can appreciate them all. Look at this crossover, and look, see, NASCAR guys like IndyCar guys like NASCAR, blah, blah. And then it was like, oh yeah, next week they're on at the exact same time, even though NBC has both the properties, and we could have somehow scheduled this differently. But and I was just like, oh, so what was this whole love of all motorsports then? Like, you have them in direct competition again. And I don't know, ever since then, it's just been kind of like, I just feel like it's a little bit disingenuous or something. I don't know. But
That's a TV thing, though, more than anything. I mean, that's not an IndyCar NASCAR
but
thing.
the TV is what's made this happen, right? Like, NBC has both properties, and I don't know. It just I just haven't been able to get into it. And I love IndyCar, but then them having a combined weekend didn't really do anything for me. I don't know. It's just, that said, I didn't go to any of the Brickyard road course races. I don't think so.
I think it is, as a fan, I think it is cool to have these two major series at one track, especially here at Indy, which is, obviously it's Indianapolis. It's special and it's unique, and it's not something you see, and I think it's going to be missed. And we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see when it comes back. I do think it will come back. How that looks.
Is there anything else from your list of notes? All my notes I went through.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but this is a missed opportunity for Suarez and that 99 team. And that seems to be the case this year, where their execution or lack thereof has bitten them many, many times. And he doesn't have a win. He is on the outside of the playoffs. And I think it's a bad look when you miss the playoffs, you're not winning races. Your teammate, now Chastain has certainly cooled off. There's no doubt about that, but he does have a win. He did lead the point standings for a good chunk of this season. And, who knows what he's going to do in the playoffs again. And you're Suarez entering a contract year, and you may miss the playoffs. And oh, by the way, the new apple in everybody's eye at Trackhouse, or what is it? Not apple in the eye, but the new flavor over at Trackhouse, SVG, is coming over here to America and going to run full time NASCAR full time next year, presumably with the intent of running Cup Series full time in the not too distant future. That would be a little worrisome if I was Daniel Suarez.
Yeah, I feel like they still value him a lot.
Oh no, they do. They do, but I mean,
he gets their sponsors excited
for sure. I agree with all of that. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, he's 17th in points, and his teammate's 7th in points.
Yeah.
And his teammate had been higher than that, like you said, at times. And
they like
it is tough, but again, today wasn't his fault, obviously.
No, but it's just part of it, though. And Justin Marks, I will say, was praising him afterwards, saying that this was the best all-around race Suarez has done since Trackhouse. I mean, and he was, he won at Sonoma, obviously, so that's high praise. And Suarez did everything right today. It wasn't his fault, but it does speak to the fact that there is a significant performance gap between their two teams, and that if he missed the playoffs, that's only going to be. It's not a good look. I just don't think it's a good look.
I mean, you could argue the performance gap has flipped, though. I mean, again, you were talking about Chastain was 17th today. Didn't hear from him. Suarez was the one who won the pole, and
sure, but that's one weekend. I mean, he did finish 6th at Michigan, and that's fine. But there's just been a lot of times this year where it's been stark. So we'll see what happens.
So Jordan, speaking of Stark,
Can I say one more thing really quick?
yes, go ahead.
Chris made a lot. We talked about this a lot. I wrote about it this week on The Athletic. Chris Buescher's top 10 streak ended today at 8. So that was the other thing I had on my list.
For road courses.
Yes, for
right?
road courses. Excuse me.
Yes, and he was 11th. So he almost did it.
He almost did it.
He almost did it.
All right, go ahead. Go on and gloat about the poll. That's fine. Go for it. Whatever.
Yes,
Don't
you
care.
knew what was coming.
I don't care. It's fine. Big picture.
So after the Chicago street course,
Mm-hmm.
Big Joe Wall 72 has been keeping these tallies for us. I looked back. You were up 12-6. That was just last month. It is now 12-11. I've won 5 in a row.
Yeah.
You have made a bet where you may have to wear my fashion choice at the Daytona 500 next year if I win in the playoffs. And if you don't hold me off these next 2 weeks, all you need is one. Your magic number has been 1 since Chicago. All you do is win 1 more race.
Yeah, we're fine.
You've got two more chances to get 1 win. Otherwise, if I win out, I'm getting a playoff bonus point. I'm starting up the playoffs 1-0.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be already thinking of what to buy at Target or Costco, as John Newby from NBC Sports messaged me. He said, I usually look at Costco too to buy clothes for Jordan to wear for Daytona 500. So you better pick it up here, Jordan. You better win this week and just put an end to this conversation.
No, it's good. Makes for good content. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, well,
that's I'm just here to. If I'll keep losing, it makes for better content the next couple of weeks. That's what I'm here for.
So it's 12-11. I won again, so I have to go first. This is going to be very difficult. This is a hard one. I think this is a pretty hard one because there's really not a lot of comparable races like this. Steven Stump, again from Front Stretch, noted that this was the first 1 caution race in NASCAR since 2012. Obviously, it's there's been stage breaks, so you can't have 1 caution anymore for the most part. But also there has been some races with no natural cautions, so it's a little bit weird, but still, like, the fact is there was 1 caution today. So we had talked earlier in the show. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Some people appreciated it playing out naturally. How many people are going to be on my side? How many people are going to go, this was too boring? It's really tough call. I don't have like a great feel for it. I'm going to say 71%.
Cool. Good number.
What are you going to say?
69%.
Now, what's your thinking there?
I agree. I think it's really hard to gauge. You're going to have some people who are going to like it because it had an old school flavor to it. It played out naturally. It didn't have the theatrics and it didn't have the craziness and the clown show element to it. But there's going to be other people like, where was the passing? Where's the excitement? Why? We had a guy who I have to go back and look. I don't have it in front of me, but they're really, I mean, outside of green flag pit stops, how many actual lead changes were there? Right. I think you're going to get that. And that's fair. And like I said earlier, you have this race on the regular on road courses, people are gonna be up in arms. People aren't gonna want this. But I do think there's gonna be some people that appreciate this. So I'll say 69.
Are you just trying to make everybody riding their cars right now go nice? Is that what
Why would they say that? I don't get it. I don't get the connotation.
I don't know.
Can you explain?
So yeah, there was 10 lead changes overall, but again, like a lot of those were for green flag cycles and all that stuff. So yeah. All right. Well, Watkins Glen next week.
Be fun.
See what happens. And then Daytona, I'll reunite with you.
Can't wait. Be good.
We'll our playoff picks are on Daytona night, when we look at our playoff picks back from previous Daytona, it ain't gonna be pretty for us this year.
No, I had Kevin Harvick missing, so that looked.
Well, we didn't have Stenhouse, we didn't have McDowell.
No.
I had Austin Dillon in the playoffs this year, so
that's okay. That's not a terrible pick.
Well, are you sure?
No, I'm not. I mean, he's made the playoffs 4 times, 5. He's it's not horrible, and he's made it on points before. So now I'm curious. Now I gotta go look and see.
No, we'll look later. I can't do that to myself yet, but
I gotta look.
Anyway, everybody, thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you next time on the the teardown. See you, everybody.